Hi, it's Pastor Steve here, talking to you from my home office. Just finished preparing my sermon for Sunday, January 11, and now I'm working on January 12 of our cover-to-cover study. We're looking at Genesis chapter 32 to 35. And when we look at these two chapters is something that is very special. We've been following along the tension that exists between Jacob and his brother Esau. And we have seen that Jacob is this conniving, scheming cheat. And we're wondering, how is God going to use this individual as one of the patriarchs of the faith? But as the story unfolds, chapter 32 and 33, I would argue, is where Jacob is fully coming to faith. You see, when he meets God earlier on, when he sees this stairway of angels ascending and descending, he makes kind of a bargain with God. If you bring me through, then you'll be my God. But now we're finding the culmination of things. And he's nervous. He's about to meet Esau. He's sending Esau gifts because he's trying to save his neck because he figures Esau has it out for him. It's funny, though, when we go through a crisis time in our life, that is often where God does his best work. And what happens? We read in the text that Jacob wrestles with God all night. Now, how is that even possible? Now, Jacob, when he talks about this, he says, I saw God's face and lived. So from his perspective, he's wrestling with God. How do we theologically understand this? We would say he's wrestling with the angel of the Lord, a representative of God with all God's authority. Or some have argued that it is a pre-incarnate visitation of Jesus and that he's literally wrestling with Jesus. But at the end of this wrestling match, when Jacob is seeking God's blessing, God dislocates his hip. And then we find Jacob gets a brand new name. You're going to be called Israel. And this name means he struggles with God. And certainly that is the case. But what happens in the very next chapter is that Jacob gives God a brand new name. The name is El Elohi. And what that means, God, you are my God. Or, God, you are now the God of Israel. And Israel meaning a person, Jacob. And what we find is that Jacob is now one who is a follower of the Lord. Not just intellectually, but from his heart. Now the next chapter, chapter 34, is a hard chapter to read. And this is an example of where we're seeing a narrative passage. It's not telling the rightness or the wrongness, but we see that a daughter of Jacob and Leah, her name is Dinah, is raped. And as a result of this rape, there is a scheme to annihilate the people of Shechem. And they come up with this big ruse. Well, you guys have to be circumcised. We want to be your neighbors. We want to be friendly. But it's all a ruse to kill them, slaughter them. And how does the story end? Jacob is furious. He says that you've made me a stink, obnoxious in the eyes of all the people because of what you have done. That whole chapter just tells us what happened. Doesn't tell us in terms of a blessing, they did the right thing. It just says, no, this is what happened, and it's part of that story. And then we wrap up with chapter 35, which is kind of a bookend to all these things that have happened. This passage, though, is for us the culmination of Jacob finding his place in the arms of God. And his way of going about, his opportunity to wrestle with God, our opportunity to wrestle with God, is often where God does some of his best work. We'll see you tomorrow.